Hello YouTube gardeners! Today's video is on planting and growing pumpkins. And I also have a super secret seed start mixture that I'm using. That it's not really a super secret, but I'm not going to share it until I'm done testing. I want to make sure that everything goes well, that the plants grow how I expect them to, and what I'm seeing so far is pretty amazing. These guys are all just a week's worth of growth, except for this one. This one back here is 3 weeks old. This is the original one that I tested out first in this mixture, and it did so amazing. Then I thought, okay, well, let's do some further experimenting. Let's see how they grow, and if all goes how I think it's gonna go, then I'll definitely be growing all of my seed starts in this mixture. So keep your eye out for a future video on what I'm growing my seeds in. Alright, so today is planting and growing pumpkins, and I'm going to get this one planted in a raised bed. See, I've got some little leaf miners already attacking the leaves. Alright, so let's pop over to the raised bed and I'll go over the soil requirements and planting and growing pumpkins. Alright, I have a new raised bed here, and this is going to be mostly growing just potatoes with some greens on top, but just like in the bed behind it, that's a potato bed, the other 4x4, it's got some melons cascading out over it, and just like this 4x8, it's got watermelons cascading out over it, and I even like to have my tomatoes, my cherry tomatoes, cascade out over it. This plant, this is a volunteer. It's seeded itself from last year's Sweet 100s. You can see why they call it Sweet 100. There's just actually thousands of cherry tomatoes that are going to be grown off this plant. Absolutely beautiful, and I like it to just cascade out over the raised bed. You can see here we've got a melon that's cascading out over it, and then like I just showed you, the watermelon. So looks so beautiful. I'm going to get this pumpkin in this corner, and then it's going to cascade out over this new raised bed. Then meanwhile, as the months go on, I am succession planting our potatoes, so I'll get more potatoes in each section, and then this bed will get filled up slowly. But pumpkins get huge, so I'm just planting it in the corner, and then I'm going to train the whole plant to come out over the edge of the raised bed, and it's just going to crawl around on the ground. I've got a ton of room out here for it to climb around and get nice and big and beautiful. Alright, so the soil conditions in this raised bed is, the majority is an organic soil, just a plain organic soil. And then I added in some Dr. Earth planting mix, and there's just one bag of that. Then I added in a bag of Harvest Supreme, and that's a compost. So there's lots of organic matter in here, and that's what pumpkins need. They grow these big, large, beautiful vines, and so they need lots of nutrients. Now this plant is so beautiful and healthy at 3 weeks because it's been growing in a high nutrient mixture. So again, I'll share that as soon as I get closer to the end of my experiment and I feel comfortable that the plants are going to grow really well in the mixture. So keep your eye out for a future video because I'm liking what I see, and I really think this is going to be great for all of my future seed starts. Alright, let's get this beauty planted. Alright, got the pumpkins in. and they are planted in a full sun location. This is an early giant. These pumpkins get really, really big, and if you picture a pumpkin patch, there is no shade, it's just all full sun. So pumpkins grow best in full sun. Last year I did plant some pumpkins along the fence line, so they did have some partial shade at parts of the day, towards the end of the day, and they didn't do well. The pumpkins that I grew in full sun did amazing, until a gopher came and started tunneling his way into eating my pumpkins. But that's a whole nother issue. Pumpkins grow super fast, and like I mentioned earlier, they're heavy feeders, so I'm definitely going to be side dressing them and mulching them with compost. If they don't get enough nutrients, then they'll have deficiencies. And speaking of problems that could occur, pollination is also an issue. So what I've experienced in the past is I see my little pumpkins forming. They get the size of maybe a smaller than a golf ball, and then they start yellowing and dying. So they never fully grow. I found out that it was a pollination issue, and so I started manually pollinating the pumpkins, the pumpkin flowers, and great results. I came over here to some pumpkins that I'm growing in the ground because these are farther along, so I wanted to see if there's some examples of the male and female flowers. I'm almost positive there's no female flowers, it's too early. The male flowers will come out first, and then the female flowers follow a few weeks later, quite a bit later actually. Alright, so here are some male flowers, and they're not open yet because it's early morning. But the male flowers all have just the long stems and no pumpkin growing at the back of the stem. Oh, I just broke off this flower. Darn it, that's okay. There's plenty of male flowers. You'll see more male flowers than female. All right, here. There we go. All right, so you can see the stem, and then it starts into a flower. When there's a female flower, the pumpkin is going to grow right behind the flower. And so it looks totally different, so you'll be able to tell very easily. And I'm going to attach a link up in the right corner to my previous video that is tips on pollinating your pumpkins. I planted quite a few pumpkin plants in this entire area under my fruit trees. So there's going to be lots of pumpkin vines crawling around on the ground here. Here's a bunch of male flowers. This pumpkin variety is called Casperita, and it's perfect for container gardening. It's a specialty pumpkin, and it grows these really small little white pumpkins for fall decorating. So lots of male flowers here. This plant is very young, so we won't be seeing some female flowers for quite a while. But you don't have to have a large area to grow pumpkins. You could grow specialty pumpkins out of whiskey barrels, and there's baking pumpkins also that don't take up a ton of room, but pumpkin vines in general do crawl around and get pretty big. So I'm going to be keeping my eye on these guys, and as the female flowers emerge, I'm going to be watching them and seeing if the pumpkin that's growing in the back of the female flower is starting to yellow. If it is, then I know I have a pollination problem, and I'll just start to manually pollinate. That sniffing in the background is little Mr. Jedi. He is always on a lizard hunt, and he thinks that there's one in the shade cloth. Buddy, did you find a friend? You did? Alright, so on to watering requirements, and pumpkins really just need even watering. not sitting in soggy soil. Not drying out too bad, but they can dry out a little bit. And where this plant is at, my sprinklers hit it, so it's getting quite a bit of water. It's probably getting too much water. You could see that I've got leaves yellowing. Are you okay? He's inhaling dirt over there. So even watering for pumpkin requirements. I'm going to be coming in pretty soon and mulching with compost. Now that the vines are nice and thick and mature, they'll be able to take it. If you're going to mulch with compost, you don't want to do it too early. I've done that before and it burns the vines. And I'll even come in and add my compost and leave it on the outside of where the roots are. You could see some of the roots even get exposed. So I'm going to make sure that the compost isn't directly on that. I'm probably going to cover it up with some wood chips as well. Alright, so I've mentioned two of the problems I've experienced growing pumpkins. One being the pollination problem, and then gophers coming in and eating the pumpkins once they're nice and mature and beautiful and ready to harvest. One of the big challenges that I face, and this is in my area, I don't know if you'll experience this in your area, but once I get the little starts out, and even if I direct sow, I have pill bugs that come in and just gnaw at the stems. And so I'm trying to see, this stem is split. That's interesting. I've never seen that before, but you'll see little gnaw marks from the little roly-polies. And if they get at them bad enough, they'll take out the stem. It'll become so weak that it'll just die back. So pest control for me is grasshoppers, aphids, and roly-polies. So this could be an overwatering problem with the yellowing of the leaves, or it could be a nitrogen issue. So I'm going to get it fed with some fish emulsion. You can see here that it's getting chewed on. So at night those pill bugs come in and eat up the leaves, and it's really not a big deal once the plants are mature enough, and they could snack on the leaves. But as I mentioned earlier, if they're chewing on the stems while the plant is still very young, then the stems can't take it and they will damage the stems to a point where the plant's going to die back. Other common problems growing pumpkins is powdery mildew, and I'm sure I'm going to experience that in some of the pumpkins I'm growing because the sprinklers hit it, but just a matter of controlling the powdery mildew and they'll be fine. I really hate that he hunts lizards because I love them. They're so cute. We have the smallest little lizards running around right now. But they're pretty much faster than him. He does get some of them. Growing pumpkins is so easy, and they grow extremely fast, so you get to see a lot of progress. And in a couple months, it's going to be time to decorate for the fall. So we'll have some beautiful pumpkins, and it's going to be time to make some mini pumpkin pies. Super cute and delicious. I'll share the recipe in November. Alright, that's it for now. Hope you guys enjoy your weekend and enjoy your garden.